Amy Loden Tiffany, and I am delighted today to have a guest with us who isn't who we would normally interview. So I met Lissa. We met how I think probably through a mutual connection, and she has her own podcast. And we were talking. We thought, wow, we have a lot of shared interests here. And you were a health coach before you created the business you have now. So before I steal any more thunder from you, why don't you just take a moment and introduce yourself to our audience?
Yeah, so my name is Lissa Figgins. It's Melissa without the M-E. And yeah, it was so fun. Someone introduced us via email and we just hopped on a call, not knowing each other, found out we were literally just a couple of miles, or tens of miles across apart from each other. And yeah, have such a heart to help women be well. And like you said, I started my business as a health coach out of my own journey of like trying to be preventative in my own health. And it was really interesting because I remember I've always been a really intentional person, especially when it comes to something that really matters to me. And so it didn't make sense to me that I would reach out to follow up with my clients when I was health coaching. And I kept hearing, oh, Lissa, life's been busy. I haven't had time. Like, all the things around, like, those kinds of excuses and reasons that we all give for why we're not getting the results that we want to get. And, at first I was just like, okay, what's going on? And then when I noticed the patterns, I start tuning in and saying, okay, Lord, what are you trying to show me here? And then I really look back in my journey and my story, and I would love to tell that in a minute here, but really realize time is this underlying issue in nearly every area of our life.
Yes.
And if and until we address the time piece of things, it will always feel like it's the obstacle or the enemy or the thing that is keeping us from the health we want, the relationship we want, the business we want, the ministry we want, the fill in the blank of what you want, right?
Yes.
Because everything takes time. And time is this like intangible thing that I always say time is the great equalizer. Every single person listening today, including you and I, we all get 24 hours today and tomorrow and the next day until Jesus comes back, right? But notice, not everybody gets the same thing out of those 24 hours. Have you ever looked
Yes.
at somebody and been like, how does she do it all in the same 24 hours? She must have an extra hour somewhere. And guess
Right.
what? She doesn't.
Yes.
But so just as I really looked at this, I'm like, okay, so how do we eliminate the time factor?
Hmm.
Or actually, even better yet, you ready for this? How do we actually use the time multiplier factor to actually get the results that we're looking for so that we can do the things that God has called us to in whatever season of life we're in? And that's going to include our health and wellness, especially if you're a professional and you are spinning a lot of plates. You have a lot of
Yes.
things you have to do all day long and you still get 24 hours. So, anyway, my
Right.
heart is to come alongside busy women to help them see time as their greatest gift and the asset that will help them see and create and scale results.
Yes, I love that. And I really do value what you're saying because many of us do, it's a culturally acceptable or a socially acceptable excuse, right? We all
Yeah.
understand what it means to be, quote, busy. Busyness and activity doesn't necessarily mean results. And you talk about on your show quite a bit about getting this return on the time you've invested, right? And I'm curious, can you explain to our listeners a little bit more about what that means? Because I know there's some people listening and they're just like, are you kidding me? Like, I don't need another time management talk, but you're not really talking about time management.
In fact, for a long time, I called myself the untime management strategist because I really truly believe time management is not the solution, it's the problem.
Yes,
So, what I would love to do, if it's okay with you, is I would love to share my story first because I feel
let's
like
do
that
it.
will set the groundwork. You guys will
Perfect.
see how I thought time management was the answer. It was actually my problem and how I was able to discover and develop the RODI method, return on time invested, that you were just asking about.
Yes.
So, I always like to start my story with, so there I was sitting in the doctor's office waiting for the results. The problem was I didn't know how I had gotten there. So fast forward or fat review or whatever, going back, I've always been a planner. I've always had a checklist. I've always like had, something with me that told me what I needed to do that day. Remember like back in grade school when you get the assignment notebook and you got to write down your assignments. And then like
Mhm.
I was the girl who would write down the ones she already did just because she wanted to
Yes.
check it off and be
Check
able to
them
see
off.
already did it, right? I know I'm not alone. Yeah, I can't remember a day of my life from when I was a girl that I didn't wake up going, having some idea of what I thought I needed or should do that day, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
so what happened then, we start, of course we go into college. I went to school for education. I became a teacher. I got married. I became a mom of three. I was leading ministries. I was running things in my community and my church. I was starting a business. Of course, now my body is needing some extra attention as I'm aging, so all the things, right? And
Uh-huh.
I'm a girl who, if you told me I should do something, it was going to help me or improve my life or help me to better do what God called me to do, I'm not going to make excuses. I'm just going to add it to my plate. Anyone else
Yes.
out there with me, right?
Mhm.
Like we're just doers and we're like, all right,
Right.
okay, we'll figure it out. So that's what I did. The problem was my amount of time didn't change, even though I was trying to cram more things into the time. So, in order to keep up, what do you have to do? You have to pick up
Yeah.
the pace and you're just going faster and you're getting up earlier and you're staying up later and you're trying to like super organize everything. And so, here's where I dove into time management and everything that all those gurus were telling me. If I just had the right kind of time blocking, if I had the right kind of planner, if I had the right kind of goals, if I had the right kind of fill in the blank, I did it because they told me if I got organized, I would feel like I had enough time and I could get it all done. Well, I am here to tell you that is not true. And it only works for so long and to a certain point.
Yeah.
So, what was going on in the meantime was I was ignoring what my body was telling me. I always had a like knot in my stomach, tension in my shoulders and my neck, and guilt in my head, right? Because when I was working on, my business or my ministry or whatever, like I was guilty that I wasn't with my family or my friends or whatever. And when I was with them, then I was thinking about the shoulda, woulda, couldas and everything else, right? So we live in two worlds. Like I was the girl, I would be in the room, but not really in the room. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah,
You weren't where
that
your
was
feet
me.
were. Yeah.
Sure, mom. I'll play. Yeah, come play Legos with me. And I'm like in there, like cleaning up dust bunnies and reorganizing the
Yes.
toy bin and folding their clothes, not really playing with them. Right. I shudder to go, But anyway,
Mhm.
so long story short, I ignored all that stuff. And then one day I realized I felt like I had a ball in my throat. Now, in typical Lissa style, I don't have time for some issue. So I just tried to drink more water and chew my food a little bit more better, right? And it didn't change anything. So I ignored it for over a year. Finally, I was like thinking about it. I was like, I had a cancer scare in my thyroid. Like, what if there's something growing that like
Yeah.
could be like really going to be costing me something? So I promised my best friends I would go see a specialist. He tried all kinds of things, finally scoped it. So back to my story. Now I'm
Mhm.
sitting in his office, waiting
Yeah.
for the results from the scope that he did. He looks at me and he's like, Lissa, good news. There's nothing growing in your throat. He said, you have hystericus globus. And he sat there with this smirk on his face, like I should know what hystericus globus is. So, yes, I am not a physician. I had no idea what that meant. I mean, I'm kind of hearing the words going, that doesn't sound very good, but okay. He said, globus, globe, you have this sensation of a ball in your throat, and hystericus, and he starts swirling his finger next to his head like you're crazy. And he goes, this is where they got the word hysterectomy from. They used to think women were going crazy in this midlife, right? And like, great,
Yes.
that made me feel so much better. Thank you. No, thank
Mhm.
you. Right. So anyway, he right in that moment offered to prescribe me a pill. He said, you got anxiety around all the things you're trying to do. That's simply what this is. And your body is like, like this is how you're feeling it is in your throat. And I was like, I knew in that moment, first of all, I'm not against medication for mental health challenges. I have people that I love very much that it is exactly what they need. I knew for me, it
Yes.
was going to be the band aid that would allow me to keep pushing the limits
Mhm.
and
Yes.
to keep doing what God wanted to get my attention around and say, hey, there's a problem here.
Mhm.
And so I wish I could say everything changed in an instant. It didn't because doers die hard.
Mhm.
But it did change in that moment when I started realizing I can't keep doing this. And then a
Right.
couple weeks later, this book showed up on my doorstep from my dad, and it was called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry by a pastor named John Mark Comer. And in that book, I learned that my busyness was not due to a disordered calendar or to do list, because if it was, all of my
Mhm.
time management hacks and tricks and tips would have already worked. It was a
Yes.
disordered heart. And as I did some time and spending looking at it, I was like, I have always chased my not enoughness. My
Mhm.
time wasn't enough. My doing wasn't enough. I'm not enough. It's like this
Mhm.
slippery slope that I think so many
Yeah.
of us slide down. We don't even realize it. And so I had to stop like finding my value in what I accomplished. In fact, I remember having to tell my husband, do not come home and ask me what I got done today.
Mhm.
Right. It was like, you could ask me, what did you focus on today? What was
Yeah.
important today? Like things like that. Not like, because otherwise I'm just looking at, did I check every box and
Mhm.
accomplish? Right. And so, anyway, it's been this journey of me learning that number one, yeah, my value is not found in the outcome of my time, but when I slow down to the presence and purpose of my time, I do find a greater roadie. So here's where I'm coming back to your question full circle,
Yep.
right? A greater return on time invested
Hmm.
because I'm not literally chasing every squirrel. Hello,
Yeah. Yeah.
shiny objects out there. There's an old Russian proverb that says, if you try to chase two squirrels, you won't catch either one. The problem is in today's modern society, we're not chasing two squirrels. We're chasing 22 squirrels or 202 squirrels or who knows how
Right.
many, right? And we
Yes.
got this thing that rings, dings, and pings at us all day long, and we're never
Yes.
not doing something. And we wonder why it feels like we don't have time,
Yeah.
right? So I developed something called the Roadie method. So the return on time invested method, because I found for myself and so many women that I work with, we pay attention to the return on investment of our money and we
Hmm.
let that determine, am I going to keep spending in this way or not based on the return I'm getting?
Yes.
Right? That's just smart. Like nobody would just be like not paying attention to the numbers and just keep throwing money out the window. And I don't know, right? But we do that with our time. Nobody pays
Right.
attention to the balance of their time or
Hmm.
to the outcome of their time, and yet our time, I think, is more valuable than our money because you can always make more money when you make a bad
Yes.
investment. You
Yes.
can never get time back. So this
Right.
is not to scare you into like, oh my gosh, now I have to be like so like rigid and on,
Hmm.
but it just helps you to go, okay, like the results you have in any area of your life, especially in your health,
Hmm.
are going to be the consequence, good, bad, or indifferent, of how you have chosen to invest time in that area up till now.
Correct.
Which actually is
Yes.
really good news because if you don't like the results you're seeing right now, all you have to do is change how and where you're investing your time because your new
Yes.
results will be the result of what you choose from now moving forward. So,
That's right.
yeah.
It
So then I
empowers
teach
you.
them, like, how do we measure the roadie and let
Hmm.
that help guide how I invest my time.
Yeah. No, and if our listeners haven't heard of your show, I highly recommend they invest time in it because it is just a fantastic help. And how you think about time, right? And everything we're taught is
Mhm.
fundamentally wrong. Um, is your position, and I would agree with that position. I get there a little differently, but we get the same outcome, which is if you don't like the results you're getting, change something, quit
Yeah.
doing the thing that isn't working.
Yeah.
One thing you said really caught my attention. I have an almost 13-year-old daughter, and we're at that phase of life where I'm revisiting seventh grade myself and thinking, oh my gosh, there's a reason I hated it so much, right? But all the
I'm so glad you're
insecurities.
not in seventh grade now because
uh,
seventh grade now is not what
It's
it was when you and I were in
awful.
seventh
It's
grade.
awful, right? But I'm like living this with her and I'm watching her and I'm seeing glimpses of my own inner seventh grader that never like healed. And one of the ways you said something that triggered this thought for me was this idea that if I get more done, if I have more merits and more achievements and all the things, especially true for my physician listeners, right? And my high achieving listeners, we are so driven to get the next thing and to lean in is what we've been told and to do all the things, wear all the hats. And yet when we do all that, we don't feel fulfilled. And part of that, this is where it goes back to seventh grade, is we're looking to other things for external validation.
Mhm.
And we're defining our identity on all the extra things we do, whether in our careers or in our households or whatnot. And this is where fundamentally what you're looking at through time and where you came to this in your own life story and in your clients, how you help them was let's redefine what's important and let's define what success looks like for each of us because it's supposed to be different. We're not supposed to be clones of each other and giving each other the freedom to grow, but also to fail. So, what I like to teach our clients is let's fail forward. Let's learn what
Mm.
didn't work and move from
Yeah.
that. And so, when you've got the client that you're working with, and they come to you and they're like, "Listen, I don't see how you can do anything different. I've done all the things." You probably have some baseline questions you ask or some information you want to find out. Very high level. What would be some thoughts that you have for that new client that's just like, "How can this be different than anything else I've ever done? I
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
want to lean into my value as a human and not be defined by all the other things."
Yeah, yeah, it's so important, right? And so that is going to be a number one question is, um, what really matters? I
Mhm.
remember this is a question you asked when you were a guest on my podcast, like us
Yeah.
really getting clear on what matters and what's going to matter for the long term, not what
Mhm.
matters in the next 5 minutes or the
Yes.
next 5 days, or maybe even the next 5 years. But when you
Yeah.
think 10, 15, 20, 30, however many years the Lord gives us, right? Like what's really going to matter?
Yes.
How am I making time for that now? Because I think we get into the I'll get to that later mentality, thinking
Right.
we have time.
Yes.
And yes, we do have time. It's something I teach, and I'll talk about that in just a minute. But we all, we don't, we're not guaranteed. how much time we have.
Right.
And here's what happens. So I know nobody will love to hear this. I guarantee if you have to do this for your finances, you will groan,
Mhm.
right? You're also going to groan when I tell you this would be a really helpful tool to do for your time. And that is to do an audit,
Mhm.
to actually pay attention to where you are spending your time, right?
Yes.
It's so interesting how you're like, why does it feel like we have no money? Right. And you're
Yeah.
like looking at the bank account, right? And it feels like it's only $5 here, $10 here. It's like, all these little things.
Add
And then
up.
you get a credit card statement and you're like, holy cow, how does this add
Uh-huh.
up like this? Right.
Yes.
So the same thing happens with our time. Like you said, it's just like these little bits of time. Sometimes they're big chunks, right? Kind of all over the place. And what I find for most people is that most people don't realize that they are living by default instead of by design. And
Mhm.
here's what happens when you live by default. Unlike with money, if I choose not to spend this $5 on my table, it will sit here, right, until I choose to spend it, right?
Right.
But with 5 minutes, if I don't choose how I'm going to spend that 5 minutes, someone or something else will decide for me, or
Yes.
that time will just be spent without me even realizing how it was spent. And I have no
Yes.
accounting for it, right? So I teach a concept called capacity by design. And I love this. If you've ever heard of like the river rocks and the pebbles illustration, you have a container, right? You put all the river rocks in or the pebbles in first, the little things. I call it Skittles and Oranges. So imagine I have this container, right? It's so tall. We fill it, we pour a bunch of Skittles in because let's be honest, life is full of Skittles, ring dings and
Yes.
pings all day long, all the notifications, all the ads, all the, somebody wants your attention or time or whatever, right? And then we have these oranges, which you all know in the health world, like this has actual nutrition compared to a Skittle. Hello.
Right.
Like this actually has vitamins and nutrients and antioxidants, and, it's going to actually fill me up versus just make me feel, good. So, anyway, we go to put the oranges in, and a couple fit in, but then they start overflowing out at the top of the container. And the reason is because we've allowed the Skittles to fill that container first. So, what I do is I
Yes.
pour it all out and I go, okay, same container, didn't change it. Same amount of oranges, same amount of Skittles, right? Let's put the oranges in first, the things that matter: your faith
Yes.
walk, your family, your friendships, the work you do, your wellness, your passions, your dwelling, the home you're taking care of, right?
Mhm.
Now I take the same amount of Skittles, I start pouring them in, and every single Skittle fits and doesn't go over the top, and there's room for it all. Right.
Right.
But again, it only happens when you do capacity by design, not
Mhm.
by default. Because when you leave it to default, it will be filled up with something else and there won't be time for what you want. So
Right.
so that's really the first place I take people is going, how much are you really being intentional with your time
Mhm. Yeah.
versus like just letting it happen, right?
Mhm.
And there is a difference, I will say this, between being intentional with time and being strategic with time. When you want to start seeing results, and I'm not just talking tangible results, of like a number on a scale or like a number in your bank account, but those are good ways to measure results,
Mhm.
right? You're talking about strategic, like that's different than
Yeah.
intentional, because now I'm really stopping to think about where I'm going to invest this time or this money or whatever it is, right? So that it will lead to the results that I want.
Yes.
And so, yeah, you only get so far flying by the seat of your pants. And you're going to either
Yes.
hit a plateau or peter out, right? And so you need a
Right.
strategic approach to your time. And it's not so much that like people are like, Lissa, I'm not a planner. Like I just, I'm like, okay, how is that working for you?
Right.
Let me ask anybody listening who says, I don't do planners, right? Okay,
Yeah.
great. How's that working for you?
Yeah.
How do you feel about your time? How do you feel about the things that matter? And if are they getting the time they need and are you seeing the results you want? Probably not.
Absolutely.
So I
Absolutely.
teach a light structure to how
Mhm.
to approach your time so that, yeah, it's not just all left up to chance.
I really love that, and I appreciate the measured way you approach it because so many times, we go to, and I'm just gonna pick on physicians for a second. That's the world I know, but we go to these conferences, and there's all this idea of life. It used to be life work balance. Now I think
Mhm.
life work integration is the sexy term. But at the end of the day, it comes down to did you get the things done that mattered to you? And the done part may be a task, but it may also be the connection with with
Yeah.
somebody. Um, was it the phone call you were able to take because you had a lot of that? And I will put in a plug for the time auditing. I've done that actually religiously for 2 years now, and it is shocking how much time you can lose if you don't be intentional, even knowing the things I know about this, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure you notice the same thing. What would you say to somebody who they say, well, I'm really too busy to even be intentional. Like I need something that I can do now, 1 hour a week. If I can give you 1 hour a week, what do I do with that time?
Okay. Before we do that, I want to address something you just said, which I think
Do
is
it.
great. If you're scared to actually write down what you do every 30 minutes of your day, then all you have to do for a time audit is open up the screen time on your phone
Yes.
and look at how much time you gave this device in the past 24 hours.
Yes.
The average person spends 4 hours and 37 minutes on their phone. To all of you who are listening, I guarantee you are not average, you're above average, which means you could be upwards of 9 hours a day.
Yeah.
Let's say you're average. Okay. Let's just say, for sake of argument, you are in the middle, right? When I did the math, because I used to be a math and English teacher, and so I like to kind of figure things out. That's just shy of 100 days a year, if you take out the sleep time
Oh,
of
good
your life,
grief.
that went to a device. And you said that you don't have time. Now,
Yeah.
were there some good, positive things that happened? You probably paid some bills. You probably messaged a friend. You probably looked up some information that you needed. Like, I'm not saying that this thing should go in the toilet and it has no value. What I'm saying is, if you want to really see where your time is going and how much time is going to something like this, look at the
Yes.
screen time and think about what impact did that have. And if you can't tell me what impact that had, then it probably
Yeah.
was mostly wasted. So anyway,
Yes. Well, I can
that's a
hear
very
all my
simple.
physicians right now. All my
Uh-huh.
physicians are saying, well, I was responding to tasks in the EMR and I was doing all
Sure.
the patient care things. And maybe you were, maybe
And
you weren't. But your point is you were doing other things too.
And yes, we all know we get sucked into the vortex of this thing when you go to check one thing, and then
Yes.
30 minutes later, you realize you've been like
How did I
online
get here?
shopping or you've been scrolling Instagram or whatever it is, right? You had good intentions, but we all
Right.
know how that goes. So, um, yeah, so that's one thing I just want to say.
Mhm.
Um, Actually, before I dive into what would I do with an hour,
Yeah.
I want to speak to
Take us
everybody
somewhere
right
else.
now who says,
Yeah.
I don't have time, because that is the first shift you have to make. Before you pick up a planner or some kind of a
Right.
tool, it is not going to change your life, just like it didn't change mine,
Right.
until you have the right belief about your time. Because we tell ourselves, I don't have time, or some version of it. If I
Yeah.
had time, when I have time, if only I had time. After the holidays, I'll have time. When my kids grow up or go to school, or this project is done, or I get through
Yeah.
this course, or whatever, we say, I will have time. No, you won't. You still have the same 24 hours every single day. And as
Yes.
long as you are chasing the time you don't think you have, you are missing out on the opportunity of the time you do have. And so
So
it starts
good.
really up here first.
Yes.
And one of my signature phrases I end every podcast episode with, every email signature has this in it. I have people tell me, Lissa, I hear you in my head. And I say, you have time. All caps, period, after each word, because I want you to slow down
Yeah.
to the fact that you actually have time.
Yes.
24 hours, whether it feels like it or not, that is where you have to start. Because as long as you tell yourself, I don't have time, you
Right.
won't. And there's nothing I can do to help you. Sorry,
Yeah.
not sorry, right?
Right.
So that's the first shift. I'm actually going to walk you through 3 shifts, and then we'll talk about what could you do with that hour, because all 3 of these shifts build on each other, and they are essential if you want to actually see something change about your time. If you're happy playing the hamster wheel game, then just keep doing what you're doing. If you're
Stay
not,
on the
listen up.
merry-go-round.
Okay, right? Yeah. Okay. So number 1 is your belief you have time. Number 2 is your role around your time, because we have been told, and I believe it's a lie, that we need to get better at managing our time.
Yeah.
I just want to say time management is dangerous. It is slowly killing you and setting you up for burnout and limited results and distraction from what truly matters. And here is why. The word manage, again, here's my English teacher coming out now. So you heard the math teacher earlier when I did the math
Yes.
on the number of hours. Now my English teacher comes out. To manage means to keep contained or under control. If I am trying to manage my time, I am trying to keep it from getting away. And I am like
Mhm.
white knuckle gripping it. Not
Yes.
always a bad thing, but right? Like, it is a fear response.
Mhm.
I am afraid that my time is going to get away from me or somebody is going to steal it from me. Now, again,
Yes.
not all bad,
Yeah.
but that is, think about, like, okay, you just get everything lined up, and then, like, it's like whack-a-mole all day long.
Mhm.
You are like, literally, right? It looked good on
Mhm.
paper when you started your day,
Yes.
and then literally one thing happened, and it's like this
Uh-huh.
train wreck. And you're like,
Yes.
how did this just happen?
Yeah.
Where did the time go? What did I even do today? I don't even know. And then you go to bed exhausted, and you get up tomorrow and you do it all over again.
And
That
it's
is
just
how
so
most
fulfilling.
Yeah, right? Isn't that exactly how we want to live life, right? Every day is like Groundhog Day, right?
Yes.
But that's what happens when we're trying to manage. We are like the guy that's running around behind the fast food counter managing, trying to
Yes.
keep everybody in place and keep everybody happy and keep everything under control from like going out of whack.
Hmm.
And they just get up and do it all over again, right?
Yeah.
That's a very fear-based response to time. I believe that we are not called to manage time. We are called to steward time. And there's a difference. Stewardship means I understand, number one, that something doesn't belong to me. It's been entrusted to me. Did
Mm.
any of us make our time today?
So good.
No, it was a gift from God. God literally, whether you asked for it or not, He laid 24 hours in front of you today. So it is a gift, right? Doesn't belong to me. And I can't save from yesterday. I can't borrow from tomorrow. Like I only get the 24 hours that He decided was enough, even though if I want 25 or 26, doesn't matter, doesn't change,
Right.
right? So a steward, so say for example, like you were to give me $100 and you're like, Lissa, I want you to steward this for me. That means I am not going to A, stuff it in my mattress so it doesn't like
Right.
get lost.
Yes.
I'm not B, going to go start shopping on Amazon. I am going to C, think what matters to Amy?
Yeah.
What are the things that are important to her? And what is she going to want not only this money, that $100 for, but actually more than the $100 for?
Yes.
And now
Right.
I'm going to go out and look for opportunities to invest the money you entrusted to me with a
Hmm.
goal of expansion on your behalf. That is what stewardship is about, right? And so here's where now it's a faith response, and it involves me loosening my grip on time
Yes.
and saying, I am going to, by faith, invest this in this thing that I think, I don't know for sure,
Hmm.
is going to bring some results in return, some roadie,
Yes.
right? And yeah, sometimes it does turn out that way and sometimes it doesn't, but we learn
Yeah.
from it, like you said, right? We fail forward, right? With an expectation of return, which means I'm not going to be wasting it or just spending it. I'm going to be looking for investment opportunities with my time. And so I think when
Yes.
we start seeing like our role around time as not being managers of it, but stewards of it, like
Yes.
now it's a whole different ball game because now
Yep.
I'm looking at the results of it, not just I'm trying to keep this thing from getting away.
Right. It's a different mindset from moving from scarcity to abundance.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
say more about that. I know you've got so many good things you can teach, and we have truly a limited time here today. But one of the things that I'm just getting like all these little mind bunnies racing about is this idea, okay, I understand stewardship, cool. I'm good with that. And now I want to do my investment, but how? Right? Like this is not what we're taught in school.
Well, I know,
So
right? They should.
like they absolutely should, very practical. So the how is what I find in my medical practice, and it's the same thing you saw as a health coach. I tell people, yeah, you need to lose weight, and yes, you need to get your habits straightened out, and so do I, let's be clear.
Mhm.
But the question isn't that they need to do this. They know they need to do it. No one
Right.
knows how.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm going to give you a very simple answer to that question, and then I can give something a little bit more nuanced or whatever. I think the how comes around asking the right question.
Mhm.
Most of us, I'm going to let you answer for your audience. What
Yeah.
do you think is the most common question that we ask throughout our day when we look at the time on our watch, we look at the time on
Yeah.
our computer, on our wall, or whatever. What do you think is the most common question we ask?
How am I going to get it all done?
Okay, yeah. Or where
When
did
am
the
I going
time
to do it?
go? Or
Yeah.
yeah,
Or after the where did it go? Yeah.
essentially, what time is it? Because
Mhm.
as soon as you look at that clock and you say, what time is it? You are already going, oh my goodness, how am I going to get it all done? Or, oh my
Right.
goodness, I should have already been done with this. Or, oh my goodness, like I'm behind. Or, oh, I should have already left the house or whatever. Right.
Yeah.
And we're already in this, like, I have to now hustle and hurry to try to catch up with something that feels like it's getting away from me.
Right. Yes.
So take that question. What time is it? And I'm
Mhm.
just going to make this slight shift that almost feels like it doesn't even really make a difference, but it makes all the difference. So, what time is it to what is it time for?
Mm.
When you ask the question, what is it time for? You don't usually feel like running.
Yeah.
You literally kind of sit back in your chair and go, what is it time for? Right. And it slows you down to the presence of your time and the purpose of your time.
Mhm.
And if we would actually stop and pause and ask that question when we're starting to feel like a hustle, hurry, like we can feel it in our body, we can feel it in our head,
Mhm.
right? If we would actually just stop in that moment and say, what is it time for right now?
Mhm.
And then do that thing,
Yes.
we would actually see that we get more done in less time, because what we tend to do is we tend to not know the answer to that question, and then we tend to multitask, right? Who here
Mhm.
is a professional multitasker, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure yeah, if in the profession that you're doing, like feel like you have to be,
Mhm.
and I understand that. But what happens when you're multitasking, you don't know what it's time for, and you're trying to do all of these things in the same time period,
Yep.
you are literally going to make things take up to 50% longer and you'll make 40% more mistakes.
Right. That's a
Right?
pretty big opportunity cost.
Exactly. And I mean, like you could be making, I mean, you guys are holding people's, like health and life sometimes in your hands. Like that
Yeah.
actually, if you're distracted in that way, like it could seriously
Will go
impact
hurt.
other people. Right.
Yes.
So I believe, yes, in the moment, if you're like in a crisis mode, you just pause, literally 30 seconds. What is it time for right now? Right. And then do that thing. And
Mhm.
guess what? It might only take you 5 minutes and now you can move
Yeah.
on to whatever else it was. Right.
Right.
But I think you should actually know the answer to that question before your day starts.
Yes.
I think you should know the answer to that question before your week starts, before your month
Mhm.
starts, before your so like as I teach people to plan their time, that's the central question we're asking. And again, we're not just going to always ask it every 5 minutes because you're still going to be
Right.
scattered. But at least if you're in crisis mode, you got something to do, right? Like,
Yes.
okay, Lissa said I can just pause and ask this question. But
Mhm.
ideally, you would have already asked that question when you weren't in crisis mode, when you were
Right.
able to think clearly about what matters and where my time needs to go. And yeah, have those things in place. And then when that
Absolutely.
time comes,
Mhm.
I'm able to do whatever that thing is. Now, does that mean that everything goes perfectly the way that I laid it out at the beginning of the day or the beginning of the week or the beginning of the month? No. Right? Like
Right.
there are things that move, but if it matters,
Yeah.
all I'm going to do is just move it to a different place in my day or my week or my month
Right.
versus
Right.
everything is like all out the window.
Well, and we know too biologically if you're in crisis mode, right? Like whether some people kind of downplay the idea of cortisol flooding the brain, and I get where they're coming from, but the reality is we're not thinking clearly. No
Right.
matter what we want to call it, we're not thinking clearly. And so by deciding ahead of time
Mhm.
how to prioritize, you set yourself up, your future self up for success.
Yeah, exactly. So if you only had 1 hour a week,
Hmm.
what I would do is I would spend that 1 hour a week previewing the next week. Because guaranteed, if you spend 1 hour a week getting some kind of a plan, ideally on paper, not just in your head, not on post it
Yes.
notes, not on your phone,
Right.
you cannot see how your time feels when you are scrolling through the calendar thing on this thing. Like, this does not help you see where do I need some margin? Where are things going to be kind of running into each other?
Hmm.
I need to
Yes.
account for when I have to leave the house for this thing or whatever. Like, I
Hmm.
believe there's something that happens when you pick up pencil or pen that
Hmm.
there's a connection between your hand and your head and your heart, right?
Yes.
And so if you were to just spend 1 hour going, okay, what are the priorities this next week?
Yes.
What are the things that I do want to make sure I know when it is time for them? And I make those
Hmm.
decisions ahead of time so we avoid decision fatigue. That is a
Hmm.
real thing. Like you said, you will
Yes.
default to what's easiest or most convenient or feels best in the moment. And you also eliminate the multitasking because,
Yeah.
and the whole idea too of like, I'm holding all in my head. And how many of you, like, you think of something and you're like, oh my gosh, I have to do it right now because if I don't do it right now, I'm going to forget. Like,
Right.
you know,
Especially true
it's
for
so
the
very
perimenopausal years, right? Or the postpartum phases.
exactly. It's like
So
parenting
true.
urgent runs your
Yeah.
day. So I actually teach a tool called the Ideal Week template. And
Mhm.
what it's a basic template that I believe every single person has 5 main time anchor zones of their day. And that's my version of time blocking that actually works and gives space for life.
Yes.
Um, but when you build out, hey, this is what my week looks like, where like here's where my family stuff is fitting, here's where my health stuff is fitting, here's where my
Right.
work stuff is fitting, my ministry or community stuff or whatever
Mhm.
those things are. Now you've got a template. When you sit down to that hour to preview and plan the next week, you're not starting from scratch and hoping you remember the things that you want to do on a consistent basis.
Right.
You've already got like a roadmap. Now, you may run into a week like, hey, it's a holiday week. And so I don't have work on Wednesday and Thursday, Friday.
Mhm.
Okay, great. Then you're going to make adjustments for that. Or maybe you
Yeah.
have extra meetings or you're going out of town or something. So it's okay when you have those weeks that are off. You
Right.
just adjust the plan. And then the next week when you sit down to do this, you still have those things sitting right in front of you. So it's not like
Yes.
you forgot them for months and then went, oh shoot, I haven't been
Mhm.
doing this forever. So yeah, so kind of like layered there, right? Of like how I
You're
would
putting
tell.
your oranges in. You're
Yep.
putting your oranges in
How
and
do
waiting
you
for the Skittles to fill in later.
exactly.
I love that. When I first started, and I don't know if I where I got the idea, the time audit idea, but it was this idea. Somebody said, if you want to know your priorities, look
Mhm.
at how you spend your time, look at your calendar, and look at your checkbook.
Mhm.
And that really got my attention because those are two things that I can be directly accountable for.
Yeah.
Those are two things I can share with my better half and say, hey, these are the things I'm working on. I want us to, as a family to be thinking about, right? And we start to have unity and alignment, and then multiplying each other's efforts. But I have noticed sometimes I'm accused of being too rigid.
Mm.
And so people will talk about, and I think I kind of heard you mention this, is this idea, well, I have this time set aside for, let's say, exercise.
Mhm.
And the kids really want to watch a movie. I really need to go for my walk. And I've had people tell me, listen, I feel like a bad mom
Mm.
when I don't do the thing with my kid and instead choose to go for the walk. And the counter argument, of course, is invest in yourself and you can invest in other people. So those are the real life situations I hear people talk about. Or, if I do what you're suggesting and I go for my walk, the dishes don't get done because no one else is going to do them.
Mm.
And
Okay,
many
I got something to
times,
say about that. Yeah.
right, like those are the things that people think about, right? They're the real life things. And my version of response is probably not nearly as cool as yours. I generally am like, so what?
Right.
Why does that matter? Tell me why it matters to you. Let's get to that deeper thought. But what do you think about some of those examples? Where would you
And
go
that
with
is
those?
important. And I would ask that question because that's going to help you make some decisions. The two things that I just jotted down, one of them is there's a difference between having a rigid routine and having a regular rhythm.
Okay.
So say for example, you want to go for that walk and you want to do it, 3 days a week and it's for 30 minutes. And usually you're doing it after work because, it's dark when these days, this time of year
Unfortunately,
and whatever.
yes.
So yeah. Okay. So then if your kids really want to watch a movie one day, okay. So yeah, what would it matter if I missed one? Right. And so I have a rule called the two rule. Like if you there's something that you typically do and it's a rhythm, and you miss it for whatever reason, because you chose to, because somebody else, an emergency came up, because you said yes to something else, whether it was a good reason or a bad reason, doesn't matter. Don't shame yourself, blame yourself, whatever.
Right.
Give yourself grace. And then just don't let it be two in a row. Because once you have two in a row, I've now developed a pattern away from my rhythm. If I
Yes.
only miss this once, no big deal. I missed one
Right.
walk, no big deal. The next time I'm going to walk, then I'm working back towards the pattern of what I normally do.
Right.
So that rule of two can be really helpful. Like it's okay,
Yes.
right? Like
Right.
you make the best decision in the time that you're in. You just may not feel like it, or your kid may really just need some mom time on the couch.
Right.
And you're like, then this is what I'm going to choose to do. And I'm
Yes.
not going to feel bad about it. And then I will pick this rhythm back up when the time is, when that time
Yes.
comes again. So that's the first thing I would say is you can't be super rigid. You have to be intentional, because if you're not intentional, then everything will feel like it's getting
Right.
hijacked, right? On the second one about like the dishes,
Mhm.
I think that one of the mistakes that especially we as women make is we don't communicate
Mhm.
with the people around us. And then what happens? So you set this plan, you've got this idea, you know what matters, and you have really good reasons why, but you don't tell anybody.
Right.
Guess what? They have no idea that you even had an intention or a plan or why. So what are they going to do? They're going to think about the immediacy of their needs
Yes.
in the moment,
Mhm.
right? And not for any wrong reason other than it's just literally what we do. We think about ourselves, right? And so
Right.
I find so many women are not communicating with their family like, hey, I know that when I go for a 30-minute walk, it clears my head, it gets my
Yes.
body moving, it helps me to transition from my workday to being at home so I can be fully present with you. So I'm
Yes.
going to, and then giving them that reason why,
Mhm.
right? And so what you can even do is then they're not surprised when you're walking out the door at 5 o'clock,
Right.
because yeah, they
There's
understand
purpose.
what you're doing and why you're doing it. And they know when you come back, you're going to be fully present with them.
Yeah.
And you may even say to them, hey, before I go on this walk, is there anything you need to tell me? Is there anything, whatever?
Right.
Or, hey, here's what we're going to do when I get back from the walk. So you can still value the person and not give them
Yes.
the immediate time, because again, they think it's an emergency right now. It
Mhm.
probably isn't something they need, like right
Right.
now. But if it is, you can make that decision and say, okay, I'm not going to walk today because this actually has to happen at this time. And
Yes.
I'm going to do that. Right. So I think
Yes.
we need to communicate, and I think we need to delegate.
Mhm.
Like unless your kids are under 3 years old, they can
Right.
help with things around the house, and you should not be the only person doing stuff. Now, eventually,
Right.
you're my age, your kids do grow up and move out of the house, and then it's back to you, yourself, and you.
Yes.
So there's going to be nobody to delegate to. But like, why are you
Yeah.
the person that all the dishes depend on? Like you
Exactly.
are not the only person eating unless you live by yourself, then
Right.
you should be delegating.
Right. I absolutely agree. So I have 5 kids, and this is the constant refrain of, teaching responsibility and accountability and taking care of each other in a family context is everyone helps. So I love how you're phrasing that. And My youngest sons are 6, and they've gotten into this habit of saying, "Well, I don't want to clear my plate because some such and such isn't." And that's, I think, actually a really interesting thought, because we look around to the people around us. And so where I'm going with this is, if you're trying to be intentional and live intentionally and have the things that you value and matter most be what are in your life, it also means that you have to surround yourself with people who have similar values.
Mm.
You're going to be, and for my physicians, my accountants, my attorneys, you're working in a system that doesn't value your time. They
Yeah.
value your output.
Yeah.
So if you want to have those results that you're describing, you're going to have to be willing to be a little bit different than what the system wants in its widgets. And I, for one, don't want to be a widget. Most of us don't. Most of us realize that we want a different future. And I find this to be really frustrating in our medical world, because so many adults in their 70s, 80s, 90s are ending up wheelchairs, nursing homes, shortened lifespans, right?
Yeah.
And it's their adult children that I'm often working with, and their adult children are saying, I don't want that outcome. Well, guess what? You get to decide what outcome you have. You're either passive or you're not passive. And your outcome is going to be directly related to how you use your time, where you're intentional, where you decide ahead of time. So this becomes an idea I teach of, let's decide for our future self. Let's make life easier for our future self. And that means, what do I need to do differently today? What is it time
And
for
here's the
now?
thing. It will always cost more time, more money, more stress, more emotion, more everything down the road than it will
Yes.
be if you just pay attention and give it a little bit of time now. So like,
Yes.
you may think you don't have time now. I guarantee you don't have time down the
Right.
road to deal with the repercussions of not
All the
having time
things.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're always going to pay it. And that's, I think, one of the fallacies that we don't realize as children and young adults is, there's always a cost. We don't
Yeah.
see it necessarily, but it does accumulate. And not using or stewarding, as you put it, the time well, is going to have an opportunity cost also.
Right.
And so, which trajectory are we on? Are we creating the future we want or the future we don't? And being intentional here and now makes such a profound difference.
Yeah.
So as you look back to where you started and where you are at today, giving yourself a ton of grace because you learned and you grew, is there one thing that you wish you had understood differently when you started?
Yeah, I think it would be this idea that, like, my value is not in just always doing something. I think we are
Yes.
human beings, and
Yes.
the way that my brain is wired is just to always be doing. Now, that being said, stewardship does motivate a healthy sense of productivity and profitability. I'm not
Yes.
sitting on the couch binging Haagen-Dazs and Netflix all day long,
Right.
going, well, yes, so much for the, whatever. There are days when I do that, and that's exactly what's needed, and I don't guilt myself into that. But yeah, I think this whole idea around, like, my worth is not tied around the fact that I'm filling every single nook and cranny with some kind of task.
Yes.
And being able to remove myself from the roles and even the titles, right, that we have on the different roles we play, right? Because we juggle a lot of different roles and a lot of different hats, and sometimes it's
Right.
more than one at once. And I've heard it, women, it's like all the open tabs on your computer, which is actually one of
Yes.
my pet peeves. And I teach people how to go down to one tab.
Yes.
It's a very simple system that I teach. But anyway,
Yes.
yeah, like, so we're always like multiple windows in our head and never really anywhere. And we wonder why no one and nothing gets enough of us to actually see the results that we would love to see happen. So
Absolutely.
yeah, that's what I would
I
say.
love this. So good. And so listeners want to follow up with you. How do they connect with you? Where are you at? How do they get involved?
Yeah, yeah. Well, the Redeem Her Time podcast, where Amy was a guest, would be a great place to hang out, because you can put me in your earbud when you're on the go, because I know you guys aren't sitting around. So find it in any podcast platform. I actually want to offer your audience a gift. It's a guide I put together called the Impactful Day Planner. You can find it at redeemhertime.com/day for the impactful day. Inside of there, we're going to unpack that capacity by design. I'm going to show you the Skittles and Oranges illustration. You're going to visibly see it, because it's even more powerful when you see it. And I'm going to teach you about the time anchor zones and the time anchoring method, and how you can start looking at these time anchor zones in your day and knowing exactly what it's time for, and knowing that there are times in your day that it is time to refill body, mind, spirit. And there are times in your day when it is time to pour out into your family or household or into the work that you do. But you have to have both. And I don't care what walk of life you're in. I haven't met anyone on the planet who doesn't need both. And, it may look different, right? Where, if you have an empty nest versus little kids at home, like your time is going to look different, but you still need refills and pour outs. And so I teach that time anchoring method inside of there. So that way you can start thinking differently about those 24 hours and how you're
Yes.
going to be living by design instead of by default.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much. And so for our listeners, do they just reach out to you directly on the podcast, or how do they get in contact
Go
with you?
So get in contact with me. Yeah, I mean, you can reach out in the podcast. I'm on Facebook is probably the platform that you can find me on most. So Lissa Figgins over there. My email is lissa@redeemhertime.com. But yeah, guaranteed if you go listen to the podcast, you're going to get resources, or if you grab the Impactful Day guide, you will be hearing from
Yes.
me. I will walk you through with a coaching video as well as follow up to help you to really start implementing and apply it to your life and season of things that you want to make time for. So yeah.
Love that. Thank you so much and for pouring into us today. And really, I hope that the listeners can walk away with this idea that they do have time. Like you said, you have the time. So let's figure out how to use it in a way that makes you have the impact you want to with the people you love, doing the things that you want to do. And that's just a beautiful way to look back at life, right? We think about when people are dying, what do they regret the most? And so many times it's that they spent their time and energy and effort doing things that didn't matter to them.
Yeah.
So, looking at this and working with you, and I can attest to all our listeners, I've listened to several podcasts, really great value that you're going to get for that investment. And so, thank you for being here today. And to our audience, thank you for tuning in. We are continuing to get deeper into the heart of what it means to be real as humans and authentic as individuals, and giving back in a way that adds value and makes life meaningful. So, tune in next time. We'll talk to you then.